So you downloaded FL Studio because you wanted to make beats, but when you open it up, you have no idea where to start. In this video, I'm going to show you the need to know basics of FL Studio, and we'll actually make a beat together step by step. I have included a free Trap Creations bundle with a few sounds that you can download right now so that you can follow along as we make this beat together. The link is in the description. Okay, let's get it. Yo, what's going on? If this is your first time on this channel, I go by Collier and I've been producing for well over a decade. I've been using FL Studio since back when they called it Fruity Loops. I've sold beats both online and in person for the past 7 years, and I've created this YouTube channel to help producers at all levels. Now, I'm going to try to make this real easy to understand, and we're going to compare making beats to making food. And where do you get food? The grocery store. Okay, click empty on this welcome screen so we can start fresh. In FL Studio, just to the right of pattern 1, you'll see these 5 buttons. Clicking this button right here will bring up your browser. Now, think of your browser as your own personal grocery store, and you own everything. The browser is where you keep the stuff that you use to make beats. Think about drums, samples, or whatever else. Each one of these titles represents a folder, and it's real easy to add sample packs. So if you're following along, let's go ahead and add the Trap Creations bundle. Okay, go to where you downloaded the Trap Creations bundle and unzip it. Then we're gonna right click and select Cut. Go back into FL Studio and look for the Packs folder. Right click and select Open, and then right click in this folder and select Paste. Click this curved arrow at the top of your browser to refresh it, and there it is. The Packs folder is a really good place to keep all your sample packs so that you can keep it all organized, but for now, since I'm only working out of the Trap Creations bundle, I'm gonna right click it and I'm gonna open it in a new tab. Now, you'll see a new tab open up at the top of your browser. Don't worry, these tabs only represent different parts of your browser. We're actually gonna come back to the browser later, but if you're at a grocery store, you'll need a shopping cart. Okay, so let's review. We have our browser and it keeps all of our sounds. It's our grocery store. Now we need a place to put all of our sounds that we're using for our beat. This is where the channel rack comes in. Think of it as a shopping cart. Once we find a sound that we like, we're gonna take it and we're gonna put it in our channel rack. Kind of similar to a shopping cart at a grocery store. Whenever you see a product that you like at the grocery store, you put it in your shopping cart. Clicking this button will bring up your channel rack. Okay, this little button right here can be used to mute a sound by left clicking it or solo a sound by right clicking and selecting the solo option. Just a heads up, whenever you see these little buttons in FL Studio, that's what they do. They're mute and solo buttons. This knob right here is the pan knob. It lets you move your sounds from the left or to the right speakers. This button is for volume. This box right here is for the mixer, but we'll talk about that later. And this block represents the actual sound that you're using. If you see the word sampler written in this block, that means there is no sound in this channel. If you right click this block, you'll see options to rename, recolor, or add an icon to this sound. This will just kind of help you to stay organized. Okay, let's add our first sound to this beat. To add an instrument, all you have to do is drag and drop it from the browser. Go to Packs, Instruments, Keyboard, and drag and drop this Stage Grand. And just so you know, there are also plugins that you can use for more sounds. Now, if you're wondering what a plugin is, think of it kind of like an app. Plugins in FL Studio are usually separated into 2 categories: generators and effects. Generators are usually instruments that only go on the channel rack, and effects are usually effects that go into the mixer, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. Now, FL Studio comes with some great stock plugins, but third-party plugins just allow you to do way more. I left a few links in the description to some of the best free plugins to help you get started. Okay, so let's review. The browser is our grocery store. This is where we keep all of our sounds. The channel rack is our shopping cart. This keeps the sounds that we want to use to make a beat. Now we need a recipe so that we know what kind of food we're making. Okay, clicking this button will bring up your piano roll. Okay, think of the piano roll like a recipe for your sounds. The piano roll tells the instruments what to do, just like a recipe tells the food what to do. Okay, you get what I'm trying to say. The piano roll is where you add notes to your instruments. Now, when we open the piano roll, we'll see these notes at the top. These numbers are bars. Every bar has 4 beats. You'll notice each bar has 4 vertical columns. These are beats. And lastly, there are 4 bars in a phrase. Now, think of a phrase like a musical sentence. And if this isn't clear right now, don't worry, because once you hear it, it'll make a lot more sense. Okay, these numbers in this bubble up here are your tempo. They're your beats per minute. This will determine how fast or slow your beat is. For this beat, I'm choosing 140 BPM, which is a classic trap tempo. And we'll be working in double time, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. Okay, before we start making our melody, we have to set a few things up first just to make this process as easy as possible. Right-click the instrument in the channel rack and select Piano Roll. Click the drop-down menu, go to View and make sure Ghost Channels is selected. Then go to Key Labels and make sure All Notes is selected. And then make sure your note grid highlights are also selected. Since we're making a dark trap beat, go to Scale Highlighting and click C. Then go back and click Minor Natural Aeolian. These notes that are now highlighted are in the C minor natural scale. If you use any of the highlighted notes musically, they will sound good together. If you want to make a chord, just choose a note and place 2 notes every other note, just like this. Okay, now we're going to make a melody using these lightly shaded notes, but we're only going to worry about making a melody for the first bar just for now. Don't worry about making this too complicated. Just stick to about 3 to 5 notes and make it kind of catchy. Now you'll notice these lines down here. Every note has one, and really they just change how the note is played. You could change the volume or velocity of a note. You could change the panning or even the pitch of a note. Press C on your keyboard to bring up the slicer tool and cut any note that goes into the second bar. You can shorten or extend each note by clicking and dragging the edge of the note. Now press Ctrl A to select everything, then Ctrl R and adjust the velocity knob so that every note is not the same. Press Ctrl B 3 times to duplicate the melody. Now one good practice is to change the 4th bar melody and add a little variation so the listener doesn't get bored. Once you have your melody, you can click this button up here, which is the metronome, and play it with your melody just to make sure that your melody is still on beat. Under Packs in your browser, click Flex, Packs, and then Arcson Cityscape. We're going to add this purple lullaby preset. Now, when we bring up the piano roll, we see these ghost notes. These notes are the melody we played with the piano. We can make a chord by skipping every other note, just like I talked about earlier. Press E to bring up the selector tool and select the chord, then hold down Shift and drag your chord progression over 3 times. For a little variation, we'll shift this top note up. Now press Ctrl R to switch up the volume, and then Ctrl S to change the timing of the notes. This will make your music sound less robotic, and again, make sure your last chord doesn't spill over into the 5th bar. Now we're going to add a quick counter melody using the same notes in the scale. We're going to go back to our packs folder, go to Instruments, Keyboard, and then we're going to drag and drop this electric piano. Now I'm just going to mess around with these highlighted notes until I find something that I like. I want this sound to stand out a little, so I'll press Ctrl A to select the whole melody and then press Ctrl up arrow to bring it up an octave. Now this is our melody. Now this is a sneaky problem that happens with a lot of producers starting out. Make sure none of your patterns leak over into the next bar. If even a little bit of your note is in the next bar, FL Studio will play the full bar before looping backwards. Now if you want a little bit more help with your melodies, you can always use MIDI files. MIDI files are pre-made melodies for your piano roll. And lucky for you, the Trap Creations bundle comes with MIDI melodies, MIDI chord progressions, and even MIDI drum starters to help get you started. All you have to do is drag and drop the MIDI files onto your instruments and it'll play them. Not to mention, you can also study MIDI files to learn how to make melodies even better. Now that we have our melody, let's get started on the drums. I like to start with my hi-hats. Pick one that you like and put it in the channel rack. Right click and go to fill every 2 steps. You can use this as is, or you can add a little style to it by adding or removing notes, adjusting the velocities, or adding rolls by pressing Alt-U to chop up the notes. But to speed things up a little bit, I'm just going to add a hi-hat MIDI from the Genesis pack in the Trap Creations bundle. This will work just fine. Now we will find a snare. The snare is placed on every 3rd beat of every bar, or the 3rd click of a metronome. Now I'll add a perk for some energy and a crash to start the pattern for some impact. All right, now it's time for the kick. Add these where they feel right. Lastly, I'll add the 808. I'm just going to copy my kick pattern by selecting the kick pattern and pressing Ctrl-C and then Ctrl-V onto my 808 channel. Now we have to set up our 808. Click the 808 channel, then click this envelope tab. Turn down the attack knob, the decay knob, and the release knob. The only knob turned up should be the hold knob. Right-click the 808 knob and select Cut Itself. Now, whenever you play your 808, it won't bleed over into the next 808 as long as your notes aren't overlapping. Then go to the piano roll and then press Ctrl-A and Ctrl-L to extend your notes. One of the biggest problems for newer producers is making sure your 808 is in key. You have to train your ear, but this tip may help. Press Ctrl-A and then Ctrl-Up and move your 808 pattern up to about C9. With 808s this high up, they should sound like beeps, and you should be able to tell the ones that sound good with your melody and the ones that sound bad with your melody. With the Trap Creations bundle, all the 808s are in the key of C, so as long as you stick to the highlighted notes in your scale, you'll be in key. I just switched a few notes around and came up with this. Now when we bring it back down to C5, it sounds like this. Okay, now we have all the parts that we need for our beat, so let's review. The browser is our grocery store and it keeps all of our sounds. The channel rack is our shopping cart and it keeps the sounds that we are using for our beat. The piano roll is our recipe. It shows how the instruments are being played. Now we have to cook the food. This button right here is the mixer. Okay, so think of your mixer like an oven. You can use the mixer to add effects and process your sounds so they aren't raw. You can use the mixer to take your sounds and turn them into the final product. The mixer may look a little complex, but it's not really that bad. Here we have the mixer channel, the meter, volume sliders, effects slots, and EQ. You can use this drop-down arrow right here to add effects to each mixer channel. Now, going back to these boxes on the channel rack, whatever number is in this box will be the number mix channel that this sound is on. So if I put a 1 in this box, this sound will be on the first mixer channel, and if I put a 2 in this box, then this sound will be on the second mixer channel, and so on and so on. You'll definitely want to put all the sounds that you use in its own separate mixer channel just to keep things organized and give yourself full control of how the beat sounds. Okay, so let's do that with all of our sounds. But first, let's rename all of our samples to stay organized. Okay, so you're gonna right click the channel in the channel rack and select rename, color, and icon. Then you can rename or color the channel any way that you want. And you're gonna wanna do this for all of the channels, just like I did here. Now, select all of your channels, then go to your mixer, right click the first channel, then go to channel routing, and then route selected channels starting from this track. Now everything should be automatically assigned. Now it's time to add effects. The first effect you should add to all your melodies is an EQ. We're going to cut out some sub-frequencies because that range is for our 808. I'll just add a few effects to make everything sound better. Don't add effects just to say that you've used a ton of effects. Every effect that you add should have a purpose. As you continue to produce, you'll find out that it's almost always better to keep it simple, unless you're going for a specific sound. If you need additional help, check out the Genesis pack for a general mixing guide. Okay, review time. We got our sounds from the browser, our grocery store. We put our sounds in our channel rack or our shopping cart. We then use the piano roll or our recipe to add notes to the instruments. We used our mixer or our oven to add effects and cook our sounds. The last thing we need to do is set the table. We'll do that in the playlist. This button right here brings up your playlist. Think of your playlist as a table. We're gonna put all the parts of our beat on this table and we're gonna use it to structure our song. Before we pull up our playlist, let's split up our channels to make this a little bit easier. Before we do this, make sure you've renamed all your sounds. All you have to do is go to the main pattern and right click pattern 1 and click split by channel. Now every pattern has one sound and this will make it easy to arrange. Now click this button to make the playlist pop up. Underneath this piano icon, you'll see all the patterns that you've just created with the split by channel function. We're gonna select all our patterns and drag them and drop them into our playlist. Now real quick, do you remember when I said we were working in double time? The only time that matters is when we're arranging the beat. So just know that every 4 bars you put down is actually 2 bars. So if I wanted to create a 4-bar intro, I would have to actually add 2 4-bar patterns. Make sure you don't leave any spaces or overlap any patterns. I usually make my intros with no drums, and then my chorus has all the sounds. And then for the verse, I start with a few sounds and build it into the chorus. I usually add and take away sounds every 4 bars to keep the beat interesting. The arrangement of your beat is very important, especially if you want to sell beats. So if you need a little extra help with beat arrangement, check out this video at the top of your screen. If you want to switch between listening to a pattern and listening to the song, you can click these 2 buttons to the left of the play button. PAT will play the current pattern and song will play whatever's in the playlist. Once I have my song laid out and I have everything sounding the way I want it to, I'll then export it as a WAV or MP3 file. WAV files are better quality, but MP3s are better when you're just sending or sharing your music to somebody because the file size is much smaller. If you plan on sending beats to artists, I suggest giving your beat a name that will inspire artists and also include the tempo and the key of the song, and then the type of sample or beat that it is. This will help you to stay organized so you can quickly find the beat if you need to. And now you should have a fully completed beat and a little bit more understanding about how FL Studio works. Okay, so for the final recap, we picked our sounds from the browser or our grocery store. We put them in a channel rack or our shopping cart. We added notes to our piano roll or our recipe. We've added effects in the mixer or our oven. And then we laid out the whole track in our playlist or the table. Watching this video is a great way to learn how to make beats in FL Studio. The best thing that you could do right now is continue to learn FL Studio and understand what all the button, knobs, and sliders do. You can do that by making more beats, or you can watch this video to learn 12 secret tricks in FL Studio. Let's get it.